Well, joining us is Funke Treasure Drodola, author and seasoned broadcaster. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning.
I remember that look my mom used to give me when we go out. You're not supposed to eat in a friend's place.
You dare not.
Even if the food is enticing, you're told to eat, and she says eat, but that look on the face is...
No, you don't even ask. You just look at her.
Look at her. And
then you do
behave. Back to default setting.
Exactly.
So tell us about this book.
Right. I wrote this book because at the time I started writing, I was a presenter on radio, and increasingly I was seeing young people not greeting their elders, becoming quite standoffish. And yeah, I was aghast at that time, like, are you people serious? You wouldn't dare to do this when I was growing up. Even if you didn't know.
I don't have to know you.
Even if you didn't know the elder, you would greet and, courtesy, and you would use the language of respect. You don't do o, you do in the Yoruba language, like da and de in the Igbo language as well. So I started writing, I started documenting my childhood memories of my grandmothers, or rather my grandparents, because I wrote about the 4 of them in that book. And the aim is to just take both adults, parents, and teenagers back to the 80s to see what life looked like growing up, what was there to us before globalization swept us literally off our feet.
Yeah.
Well, I like that, the book hit the markets like 4 years ago, if I'm correct now.
2013, and then it was presented to the public 2015.
Okay.
So the book apparently is evergreen now.
It is.
So ever since the book, was published and all of that, do you think your aim in writing the book has somewhat been achieved years after, if you'd like to have a review, so to speak?
Yes, I think so, in the sense that at the time this was released, a lot of teenagers read, and their parents kept coming back to me, please, when is part 2 coming out? I'm like, no, this is not a part 2. It's not Nollywood. This is a book, just enjoy it for what it is. And a lot of parents came back to me like, oh, you made me remember when I was younger, you made me remember that food. Because this is not just about greeting, it's about the totality of our culture, of our tradition, the food we ate back then, the kurus, this yam.
Yes, everything that makes the total child become a person of influence at this time.
It's a socialization into that culture.
So much vibes to get from that book, but that will be all for now. Maybe we'll take this breather now to take a steal into the book now. Funke Treasure Drodola, thank you very much, and we wish you more exploits in the future.
Thank you.
So joining us is Funke Treasure Drodola, author and seasoned broadcaster. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so this book, first of all, what was your mom's way of telling you to leave the area that adults are discussing?
She just looks at you like this, intensely. And then you get the memo immediately. Out now.
I'm looking at the book right there with you. I'm seeing that it doesn't look as new as the one Theophilus has, which gives me a sense of you still have to go back to the book over and over again. Why is that?
Because it's out of print right now, so I'm trying to do a reissue. When you do a reissue, you go through it again, you dissect every page, every sentence to see what can I redo. What can I add? What can I do differently? So that's what I'm doing. That's why it's, and they have songs, and I'm looking at bringing up all the songs in the book as a soundtrack. So an album is on the way. That's what I'm working on now. So you have all these songs, Mojisola Fowo Epo, Bamilenu, Emagbo, Oshebi Eronko Ki Soro, Emagbo.
Songs you learned from your grandma.
Yes, but why is it so important, to bring these songs? Okay, well, let me confess, that sounds rather strange to my ear, but
Really?
I love the lyrics. I know some songs now. Don't discredit me totally. I know many traditional songs, but it's why do you think it's so important for our generation, the upcoming generation, to know these songs?
Because language is about intangible and tangible parts of our culture. It's a totality, as I said earlier, of our culture. When you preserve things like this for the generation behind, you equip them with what they need to perpetuate everything about the culture. These are songs from the folk tales my grandmother taught me, my maternal grandmother precisely. I couldn't even document all of them. I just documented my favorites. Like I have Ele Liji Fe, Eliji Fe, Konfe Eliji. You ask a regular child today, what is Eji? They don't know, but Eji is also rain. Eji is rain, right? And then you have songs like all song balu morere alumo, all song balu morere ni Georgie okay, both of you alumo ni Georgie ohoron alumo also balu morere.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so let's looking at the book now. A Thief in the Yard, chapter 12. Tell us about it.
Well, this Thief in the Yard was especially my favorite because it had to do with a young girl who had a mom who was a great cook, and cooking is trending now in Nigeria, who was a great cook. And she used to go back home when the mother went to the market to take the food, the vegetable, and eat. And then she'll smear the mouth of the goat at home with the palm oil. So when the mother came back from the market, she'll beat the goats and beat the goats. So one day, the goats started talking and started singing. Mujisola for woipo ba milenu. Ah, e ma gbo bo se bi ẹranko kì í sọ̀rọ̀. Ah, e ma gbo. You know.
So what's the lesson? What's the lesson behind that?
So Mujisola was found out. And she was a pretty girl. She was very popular amongst peers. But then they found her out that she'd been a thief in the yard all along. Of course, she was shamed, but her mother forgave her and taught her how to make the vegetables. It was ebolo vegetable. And how many of us even know what ebolo is? It's a type of vegetable in Yoruba land. All we see these days is shoko, tete, and ugu. In the markets. Where do you find ebolo?
Well, all this reminds me of back in the day when you watched Tales by Moonlight.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know what? Grandmas are a repository of cultural knowledge. That's why an adage says when a grandma dies, when an old person dies, it's synonymous with a library being burnt. So you don't want to lose all of that. You want to document these things. You want the next generation to not think that it's cool to walk by an elderly person and not help.
Greeting.
Not just greeting, but help with what they're holding, even when you're not,
And more commendation to our mothers and grandmothers, how that they will slap you with one hand, but then they will still drag you and bring you close now with a warm embrace. So much coming back to mind now with this wonderful book from you, Funke Treasure Durodola. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Well, joining us is Funke Treasure Durodola, author and seasoned broadcaster. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so looking at this book now, what message are we trying to pass with the book?
Well, it's that your identity is important. Language is part of your identity. Culture defines your identity in many ways. For instance, if you go to the UK, the Queen, you curtsy to the Queen. The first time I saw it, I went gaga. Like, really? Like Yoruba people curtsy to elderly people. It shows that, and then you see the Indian man, his namaste is constant. The same with the Chinese man, the same with the Italian, they're family oriented, they maintained their culture, they preserved it.
And we see that years and years and years and more of civilization doesn't erode that.
No, it hasn't. So my message in this book is to preserve our culture, the culture that I grew up with, the things that I saw, our food, our clothing, our language, our nuances in many ways, because culture is intangible as well. And to let the younger ones see that it's a rich culture that you should be proud of. You should never be ashamed of your culture. I'm a speech coach. I teach English to second language speakers of the English language. Yet I can speak my language and I can speak my dialects. Can I go on? No, so the point
that is fantastic for me, because of course I know you, everyone in the broadcasting, and I'm viewers. You have ardent admirers, who follow your program on radio and all that. Yet you are an advocate for our culture, our tradition, our language. I'm getting to a part in the book now where you went to wake up your grandmother at a point. Now, you asked a question that many parents would have dubbed rude. Why don't you go to work? It gives me a sense of how one treats curious children of this modern age now. Rather than shoo them away, your grandma said something so poignant. She said, okay, he who asks a question will never go wrong in life. And how do you relate with that, when handling children of today?
Yeah, but the thing is, the more curious your child is, the more eager, it means your child is eager to learn. You should never shut up a child who is curious to learn anything. If you want to be diplomatic with your answer, it's allowed, but never say don't. Because then you're killing something about that child. You're killing the natural tendency for a child to want to learn, to aspire to know. So you don't shut up a child who is curious to learn. But then again, I want to quickly say also that the kind of English we speak here, because we were colonized by the English, by the British, the kind of English we speak is not the same they speak over there, because we're second language speakers. So it's in your interest to speak your language, because when you get there, the mother tongue country, you realize that you don't speak their kind of English. Their English is more nuanced. They have different expressions. You know that recently we had some Nigerian words added to the dictionary. It shows that they're following us and they're assimilating our own nuances. We shouldn't forget ours, because when you get there, you realize that you neither have an identity here nor there. So it's important for you to preserve what is yours, preserve your identity. And starts today, if you haven't been, to socialize your children into, let them learn what it means to say ekaro, ekason, odabo, odigba. Most people don't know that Ibeji is also Edun. So that's why you have Edun where Do you understand?
So you can start small. You can start small and then nurture it.
Yes.
Funke Treasure Duro Dollar, always a delight having you talking to us.
Thank you.